talking about change management, right? And so when it comes to change, right, change is a part of our lives. Change is something that we literally have to do. We have to adapt to different things. Just so much stuff happens in our everyday life, whether that's, our personal lives or our professional life. And we have to learn how to adapt to change. Sometimes it can be a gradual thing. Sometimes you have to literally adjust to life in the blink of an eye, right? And so the definition of change says the ability to adapt new situations and to help others do the same. It involves understanding how to handle transitions, whether that's in school, whether that's in work, whether that's, in your personal life, and guiding yourself or a group smoothly through the change. Now, a couple of references, scriptures that I have to reference that is going to be Jeremiah 29, verse 11, which reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." There's actually a lot of different scriptures that reference change management, but I do have two more. Romans 12 verse 2, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. The last one I have is going to be Proverbs 3, 5, 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. The reason why I kind of put all of those when it comes to change is because change is uncomfortable, right? We don't like to change. We like to stay in our ways. We like to sometimes be stubborn, and we like to do what feels familiar, do what feels comfortable, do what we have already done, right? Sometimes people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that can be true to a sense, but sometimes, to require something that you have never gotten, sometimes we have to do things that we have never done before. And so that comes along when it comes to change. And in the process of, changing, sometimes we don't want to change because we are, sometimes afraid of, okay, well, if I do this or if I don't do this, what is the outcome going to be? And again, that's not up for us to, decide. As long as we have that plan, have that goal, have that destination, God's gonna, provide and do the middle part. He just wants us to get moving, and he will lead us to that destination. And so I think those scriptures just reference that, because sometimes we don't change, sometimes we don't move because we are trying to lean on, the understanding of us, trying to lean on what we know is gonna work, for a fact, because we have the control over it. But sometimes change is really just letting go and surrendering to God and just saying, hey, Lord, you take, care of the rest, right? So when it comes to change, change is not a part of life. When it comes to change, of course, like I said, change is a part of life. But fear, resistance, and uncertainty often makes change overwhelming, which is pretty much basically what I just talked about. Change is more so, like I say, adapting, responding, and growing through those troubles or growing through those difficult times and things sometimes when we do have to change. So change becomes something that you can manage, right? Because this is change management. Change is not something that you need to fear, okay? And so that's why I put those scriptures there. So most of the time people think like change is the problem, right? Like it's the very thing of, oh, you doing this, so you need to change. Or, oh, this is happening, to me, so I need to change it. Change is more so of how we are reacting to the problem, right? What are we doing to solve the problem, right? It's the action steps, because again, it's manageable. You can manage change at times. So the question that I have for you is, what changes feel hard for you? If you are an entrepreneur, leader, or mentor, what changes are hard for you in your personal life? In your professional life, and then what are some things that are challenging for you in your personal life, right? And in your action book, I want you to write those things down. Okay, I want you to write down either something that you're currently going through or maybe like a recent change. And if you want to split it and do personal and professional, you can. If you just want to write, just 3 in general, that's up to you. But I want you to write down 3 things that is challenging for you. And I want to normalize fear. I want to normalize uncertainty. I want to normalize, frustration, because when we change or if we have to adapt to certain situations, that is going to come up. And it's okay. I'm not here to say do not fear, do not be frustrated. Those are all valid emotions that we have, right? And it's okay. The goal is not to stay stuck in fear, not to stay stuck in frustration, not to stay stuck in the uncertainty, right? So it's okay to feel what you feel, because that's also a part of life too. But we gotta, move forward. And just recognizing that those emotions, they're just signs, and sometimes typically it's those signs that's like, this is really what I need to be doing, right? When we get that fear because we really don't know how it's going to play out, sometimes, it's that very thing that we really need to continue to push forward and push through, because at the end of the day, we're closer to the goal than we think we are. We're closer to the destination than we think we are. And then the devil try to come in and try to put that fear so he can stop you from getting to the purpose that God has you to get to. So, in your book, write those challenges, and then you can identify at least one emotion for each of the changes or each of the challenges, right? And then I want you to replace I can't handle this with I'm learning how to adapt. All right, so lesson 2 of change, we're talking about letting go and adapting with intentions, right? And so growth requires you releasing what no longer serves you, right? Growth requires you not to hold on, to a lot of things. Growth requires progress, right? And so when it comes to change, we don't have to be in control, right? We don't. So, for example, if you are a manager, at a company, we don't always have to take control literally of every single thing, of every single situation. You don't always have to be right about something, right? You want change to be more so of like an influence, right? So if a situation does pop up while you're at work, show the intention of changing that situation to a positive situation, but do it intentionally. Don't just, go over there, oh, well, I got an email from my boss today, and, going forward, nobody can have their phones on the floor. Going forward, you can't eat at your desk. These are just examples, right? Because you have some people who get upset. It's like, dang, I can't have my phone on the floor. Dang, I can't eat at my desk. We used to could eat at our desk, and now they coming up with all these other rules, right? Like, we've all been in that situation where we're so used to doing things, and then when we have to change it, we get upset. If you are the boss that has to deliver that message, you don't want to go in to tell your team, even if you don't agree with it. You still don't want to go in and tell your team, okay, well, y'all, we can't have food on the floor no more. Y'all can't have y'all phones in y'all pockets or whatever. Y'all can't have phones on the floor. You don't want to go in negative, because, again, leadership skills, that's how your team's going to perceive it as well. You want to go in just as bubbly as you can, even if the change is something that you don't agree with, even if the change, again, is just something that you have to adapt to. So you can go into your next huddle, your next meeting, and say, all right, y'all, so there are just a few, changes that we do have to adapt to. Unfortunately, I did get an email, from our boss, just basically stating, as a company, new rule or company-wide new change, starting, effective tomorrow, there will be no phones on the floor. You are not allowed to, eat or drink, at your desk or at your station. Again, this is just an example. The way that you present yourself to your team is going to help them adapt to the change as well, right? Which again goes back to the leadership skills and how you are showing up for your team. And then you can give them alternatives and give them examples. So just ensure while you guys are on the phone or on the floor, you don't necessarily have to have, your phone completely turned off. Just please ensure that you do have it, on silent or on do not disturb. If you do need to take a phone call, just step outside of the room to do whatever, important things that you do need to do on your phone. However, just don't pull your phone out while you are on the floor. And then in reference to eating, you can have, maybe like water or your water bottle, but you cannot have, any open cups or things of that sort or whatever. If you do need to step out to take a drink, a sip or whatever, you can do that outside. It's just the way of how you are presenting yourself because you want to help your team adapt to the change. And it could be, a total different scenario. But I'm just giving that something to y'all to show you that when you do present that to your team, change is about adapting. So you can't go into it in a negative mindset. You have to continue to still go into it with a positive mindset, even if it's something that you also don't agree with as well. And so also just be mindful to be flexible. You get what I'm saying? Be flexible, right? Just be flexible. We're not going to agree with a lot of things that our bosses and, people tell us to do. And then even with you being an entrepreneur or leader or mentor, sometimes people are not going to perceive and like the changes and the things that you present to your team. Again, we can't make everybody happy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But change is necessary, and go into it, like I said, in a positive way and let your team realize like the changes that we are making is for growth. The changes that we are making, is going to move us forward to our goal. Whatever that change is. So action steps. Write what you can control versus what you can't. And again, you can do that professionally and you can do that personally. And then I want you to practice letting go of one expectation or one habit that you are tied to in the past. Again, that could be professionally or that can be personally. But learn to practice at least maybe like once a week. Just one thing, one expectation, one habit, one thing that you are just so tied to, so always trying to keep control and hold over, where you just need to let it go. And then take the new step. Take an alternative route. In reference to what you're letting go. So write down an expectation that you're trying to let go, and then on the positive note or the positive side, find some type of positive action that's going to support that particular expectations or habit that you are trying to release. All right, and then lesson 3 of change management, we're talking about growing through change and building resilience. So change can either break you or change can build you. The difference is mindset and action. And I'm not going to go too much more into this because that's basically what we have been talking about throughout, the other modules as well. And just learning to, like I said, move forward, taking that next step to just, say, hey, we got to adapt to it, keeping that positive mindset. If you have that positive mindset, you are the influence to your team. Your team is going to look up to you. And just learning that, like I say, change is necessary. Change is about, growing. And by you being that entrepreneur, that leader, that mentor, yes, you're growing, but you're also helping your team grow as well. Like, depending on what you're doing, you're still teaching your team how to go through change management when they get their own team, when they, branch out and have their own business. You know what I'm saying? So it's about learning from each other, teaching each other, but still being tied to just learning and knowing that we have to adapt to those different changes and not always look at change as a bad thing. The action steps for this, I would just say, identify one thing. Identify one thing change is teaching you. And then I want you to name a skill or name a quality that you are developing, and set one short goal for your new season. All of this is in your workbook. The closing reflection is, how can this change shape me instead of stopping me? So we talked about, basically, even though there could be some things that we don't like in reference to change, we're making sure that this is not going to stop us, making sure that when we do get frustrated, when fear tries to come, it's not going to stop us. And then a declaration that I'm going to leave, for change management is going to be, I don't fear change, I grow through it. Again, I don't fear change, I grow through it. So this is all for change management. See ya.